Welcome back to the Mindfulness Mosh Pit, and this week I'm going to be talking about something which I think is quite present in the communal psyche right now, and that is betrayal. Everybody's been through some kind of betrayal in their lives, whether that be relationship betrayal, whether that be feeling betrayed by your significant adults when you were a kid, even feeling like you're being betrayed by the very institutions that are there to protect you, like governments and that kind of thing. And I think that's very present at the moment. And that can be very difficult for people to deal with. I know personally it's very difficult for me to deal with. So today I'm going to talk about how you can actually deal with feeling betrayed and what you can do about it so that it doesn't hold you back from continuing with the things that you need to do. Now, the first thing with betrayal is to actually identify how it makes you feel. And that's different for everyone. It might make you angry, it might make you fearful, it might make you feel like you want to commit some kind of act of violence if it's really, really annoyed you, if it's really, really gotten to you. But the first stage is actually to identify how it's making you feel. And the reason for doing this is that when we can identify how we feel, if we can put a word to it, if we can put a reason or a meaning or a context to it, then we're giving it some kind of acknowledgement. And acknowledging how we feel is the first step towards changing that, pivoting it and putting it into a more positive perspective. So if you can identify first how that betrayal is making you feel, you're on the right track, you're on the first step. Then actually try to identify why you're specifically feeling that way. Now, if you're feeling fearful, for example, it might be that kind of betrayal you think is going to have a direct effect on your life, and that's natural to feel that. You might be feeling angry because it has disturbed you in some way, in that it has stopped you from moving forward, or it is stopping you from moving in the direction that you need to go. Maybe you're feeling worrisome. Everybody's pretty worried at the moment in the end of 2022. There's some crazy things going on. That's natural too. But identify specifically why you're feeling that emotion, because it might actually be more linked to something you've experienced in the past that maybe needs healing in itself so that you can react differently to things that happen in the future. The second thing to do is actually resist the urge to retaliate. Now, retaliation in any way, any shape, any form, any means, any context is not a good thing to do. It's that eye for an eye kind of thing, it doesn't work. It just makes the whole world blind. So resist that urge to retaliate. Now, if you can retaliate in a positive way, in that you can perhaps sign a petition that will cause the government to discuss something in Parliament, or maybe you can go on a protest march peacefully to show that your opinion is worthy and is important. That's fine. But if you feel betrayed and you retaliate, and you want to retaliate in a harmful way, in a negative way, in a way that is going to impact on somebody else, resist the urge to do that. I know it can be very it can feel like it's the right thing to do because you feel like it's going to make you feel better, but it won't. It will always work out negatively in the end. So resist that urge to retaliate. The third step is to take some time away. If you have been betrayed by another person, if they've divulged a secret that you gave to them, maybe it's in a relationship you've been cheated on, maybe it's your government betraying you, maybe it's maybe it's a significant other, it's someone at work, it's someone at school, whatever it might be. Take some time away from them. Take some time away from the subject. And what that means is, if it comes down to turning the TV off so you're not watching the news, or if you're living in a house with someone who's betrayed you, taking some time away from that person, going and staying somewhere else for a couple of weeks. If it's someone at work, taking steps to avoid them at work so that you're not confronted by that betrayal all the time. You're not running away from it, because in step one, you've acknowledged how you feel. And because you've acknowledged how you feel, you've given that some kind of motion into healing. And that's exactly what you need to do. If you push negative feeling away, if you push it away and try and just ignore it, it just gets bigger and bigger because you're not dealing with it. But by taking yourself out of a situation, you're giving yourself the chance to actually Even look at things a little more objectively, maybe gain a little bit of new perspective, and you're giving your nervous system a chance to calm down, because all these emotions that we feel, especially negative emotions, they get stuck in our nervous system. And if we don't deal with them, they're just sitting there somewhere. When something happens in the future, that response, that emotion that hasn't been dealt with is just sitting there ready to make us react in a less than positive way. It sits there festering, something happens, and then we react in a way that isn't perhaps the most constructive that we could. But by taking that time away, you're giving yourself the objectivity to look at something. You're allowing your nervous system to calm so that you can then start to heal that betrayal. The fourth thing to do is actually then to talk to someone about it. Now, that could be going to a therapist, that could be going to some kind of counselling, or it could just even be talking to a friend who has some kind of objectivity around the subject. Because now, I'm actually not an advocate of a problem shared as a problem halved. I'm actually an advocate that if you complain to someone else, you're just doubling the complaint. But in this case, you're sharing your feelings, you're again acknowledging how you feel so that you're looking for solutions. Now, this is the key part. When you're talking to someone and you're wanting to feel better about a situation, I would always go into a conversation saying, I don't want you to complain with me, I don't want you to go down the negative emotional route with me. Say that you're looking for solutions on how to heal. Now, you can do this yourself, obviously, you can heal yourself, but when you talk to someone, you get that objective perspective on a situation, and they might come up with some ideas that you might not be able to come up with because you're in the thick of that emotion. So just talk to someone that you know is not going to be too emotionally involved in the situation, and someone that you know is usually a positive uplifter. You don't want to go to that friend who you know is just going to complain and bring you down even further. You want that friend who's going to lift you up. We've all got that one friend that we know is always really good to talk to, who really makes us feel better. Or if you don't have someone like that, you can go to a counsellor or a therapist, or you can even find an online group that will be able to give you some kind of positive and constructive feedback on your situation. Number 5, once you've gained a little bit of objectivity, once you've gained a little bit of a more of a perspective about what's going on, your nervous system's calmed down a bit, you're not too much in the thick of it, you're at a point now where actually you can start to examine that betrayal. You can have a look at the person or the entity or whoever it was who you feel betrayed by, and maybe, just maybe, you can put yourself in their shoes and you can understand why they did it. Now, that might be difficult with governments because we're talking about corruption and all that stuff, all that kind of stuff, so let's not go down that route. But if it's betrayal in a relationship, for example, whether that's with a partner or a spouse, or even with a friend, let's say you've been betrayed by another person, perhaps you can try and put yourself in their shoes just for a second to see perhaps why they did it in the first place. Now, this might be tricky in a love relationship. Let's say you've been cheated on by someone. I've been in that situation myself, but I've been cheated on. And in the moment, you can't, your ego's been dented, basically. The person that you put your trust and your love into has hurt you emotionally, and that is really difficult. And it's then very difficult, obviously, to put yourself in their shoes. But if you can, just for a second, maybe the relationship needs to be worked on. Maybe that person has things in their past that they haven't dealt with that causes them to behave in a way that is less than ideal in a relationship. That is very, very, very common. Maybe you've got a friend who was put in a really awkward position and they felt like they had no other choice. When you're on the healing journey and you're feeling a little bit more positive about the way that you're feeling about the betrayal, try and put yourselves in that person's shoes or that entity's shoes and see if they perhaps had an internal reason themselves that maybe the betrayal wasn't done out of pure spite. It's very rare that betrayal is done out of pure spite, especially in relationships. And maybe you can see and have a little bit of a perspective as to why they possibly behaved in that way and they reacted in that way. And that's a very healing thing to do, because that puts you in the energy of forgiveness, on the way to the energy of forgiveness anyway, and that's a very powerful thing to do. Now, the next step really only applies if it's to do with betrayal in a relationship with another person, and that is to actually examine that relationship. If you're in a love relationship with someone who's betrayed you, and maybe they've betrayed you a few times, does that relationship need some examination? Does that relationship really need to be examined in a way that validates it? Is it worth continuing with that relationship? Are there steps you can take to improve that relationship? And that goes for friends as well. Maybe that friend is not the friend that you thought they were, and it's actually okay to let friends go. You don't have any loyalty responsibilities to people who are not serving you as a friend. You don't owe them anything. They're a grown up, they can move on and they can go and find somebody else. If that person is not healthy for you, if that person is not serving you, or it's not a mutually serving relationship, then it is perfectly okay to let them go in a positive way and say, I'm sorry, I can't continue with this friendship because I don't feel like I can trust you, or whatever the situation is. But examine that relationship. Maybe it needs work, maybe it needs ending, maybe you need to move on, but always look at the lessons that you can learn out of something. Nothing is ever negative in that way that it doesn't have something to teach you. Everything negative that happens in your life has something to teach you, and you can either allow it to drag you down so that you feel bad about it, or you can look at the lessons you can learn from it so that when you go into the next segment that you're going into in your life, you've got lessons to take with you so that you don't repeat those actions. Now, the final step, and I put great importance on this step, I put great importance in doing this in absolutely everything that I teach, everything that I tell my clients and my customers, and that is go into some self-reflection. Self-reflection is really important, because what it does is it teaches you about the things that you can improve on yourself going forward. Now, none of us are perfect, and perfection is not the goal. It's not possible, it's not the goal, it should never be the goal. But we all go through things in life which we, in the moment, are less than ideal, of course. We all are confronted by things that happen that make us feel uncomfortable, they make us feel upset and sad. We go through grieving processes. Betrayal in itself is a grieving process. You're grieving something that you thought was good and it turned out not to be as good as you thought. But self-reflection is important to be able to grow. And it's that growth mindset that propels you on a trajectory to a hugely better life. So if you've been betrayed, you've gone through the steps, you're feeling a bit better about it, maybe you've chucked that person to the curb, maybe you've tried to forgive, if it's a government, you've tried to forgive them. Very difficult, I know. But you're in a position now to self-reflect. Sit down with your journal, or maybe just even go for a long walk and think about it, whichever's the thing that really helps you to work through things. And journal out and think through what it is about you that perhaps attracted that kind of behavior into your life. Because life doesn't really happen to us, life happens because of us. Is there maybe something in your life that you portray out into the world that attracted a certain negative behavior towards you? Now, I know that I've done it in the past in relationships. I've in the past gotten into relationships where I wanted to help the person I was in a relationship with, sucker for a lost cause kind of thing. And that wasn't really healthy in the past. It wasn't healthy for me to go into relationships trying to fix someone it was not my place to fix that person. But that meant that I attracted people into my life who basically, in my eyes, needed fixing, and that wasn't healthy. And I realized that after quite a long time, I realized that, and I was able to change that pattern of behavior within my relationships, and I attracted a much better relationship into my life, which I'm still in. So is there something maybe in your self-reflection you can discover about yourself that where you've got a pattern that's going on, you've got not so much a toxic pattern, but maybe a pattern that you need to interrupt in order to the next time move into a friendship or a relationship that is better for you, better suited for you? Are there elements about you that you don't think are lovable enough so that you attract someone who you think maybe is just about good enough? There's all sorts of things that it could possibly be in yourself. Your unmet needs that you had through your childhood and into your young adulthood, that maybe you're projecting now out into the world and attracting things back to try and meet those needs, when it's actually you who needs to meet those unmet needs. I've got more videos coming up on that later. But have a self-reflection, sit and journal, think about yourself. Is there something about yourself that you would like to improve so that you can go into that growth mindset and move forward in your life into a next better segment? So that's my video on how to deal with betrayal. It's easier through relationships to go through these steps. If it's something like a government or a company or some kind of big entity that you don't have any tangible connection to, it's more difficult to do. But in that case, it's just a case of trying to actually avoid the betrayal that they're putting, that you feel every day. And the easiest way to do that is to turn off the news, turn off the telly, don't read the newspapers, that kind of thing, because we're just bombarded with it all the time. And it's very difficult to get caught up in that spiral of feeling like you're being betrayed. Tell me in the comments what you think about this. Is there someone in your life that you've betrayed that you can't forgive? Are you suffering with this? Tell me something that I can help you with, and I will try and help you as good as I can, as well as I can. And don't forget to hit the like and subscribe buttons so that we can get this video out to more people, so we can help more people to have better lives, because that's my number one mission. I want people to have happy, abundant and carefree lives so that they can live with freedom and purpose and not with frustration and pointlessness. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you again in another video soon. Have a great day.